I was having a conversation kind of recently. Well, not recent. Okay, I don't have a concept of time because of COVID. So for me, recently is anything from 2010 until now. So my memory is just that's just how I work. If I remember it, it's recent, and if I don't remember it, then it was a long time ago. But I was having a conversation with someone. She's getting her MBA. She's finishing her MBA this spring from a business school in California, a very good business school. Um, and she was telling me that she's working at a company. She found out about me because I spoke at a just a panel. I was a speaker for a panel discussion in beginning of January um, for a group in Texas, a professional group in Texas. So she attended that event. She saw me speak. She reached out to me later on. I left my contact information, and she told me, Muhammad, I'm an MBA student. I'm in a 2-year MBA program, and I'm graduating this year. After my first year, most people did an internship during the summer. I got a job. It was more like data analysis type stuff. She's like, I want to be a product manager. What can I do? So I asked her a little bit about her company. I said what opportunities exist, what kind of space do they operate in. Share whatever you can. If you can't, give me too much about the company because I think it was a small startup, um, which of course everyone in California is working for startups. So she gave me some information on the company, and it's not too small. I looked on LinkedIn, and they have about 22 employees. And if the company has 22 employees on LinkedIn, that doesn't mean it's 22 employees. That means that there's also people who aren't on LinkedIn, who who are working for that company offline, and also there are people who might be on LinkedIn but haven't updated it because they just joined, or they're trying to, maybe they just don't want to mention it or anything like that. Um, if they're working part time or just don't want to, just show everyone that they're there yet. I know sometimes people like to wait until they're at a company for 2-3 months because they don't want to add a company to their LinkedIn, and then they're only there for a month, something happens, God forbid, and then they have to remove it, and then it's just unnecessary drama and headaches. So some people like to wait. So I looked at it, I saw 22 employees, and in my head I was like looking at what they're doing, looking at how strong they've been, gaining momentum and market share. I said there's definitely more than 22 employees. So I talked to her. I just asked her, about her day to day. I asked her about any um, opportunities that she's noticed because she wanted to basically when she graduates her MBA, she was like, I want to be a product manager. I want the company to give me a product and I'll manage it. I'll be in charge of marketing. I'll be in charge of A/B testing. I'll be in charge of its development and enhancements and improvements and just helping the product evolve in reaction to the needs of the customers. So I told her what I had done a long time ago, and I don't know how dated this advice is. I don't know if this advice is good advice at all. It might be something that worked for me in a time where it was a little bit easier to generate your own luck. But I was working for a company a long time ago, and we had this like kiosk for clocking in and clocking out. It was kind of like an ATM machine, and we would come to work and we would clock in on this. We would clock in on this machine. You had like an ID, you would stick it into the machine, and then it had like menu options, and then you would you clock in, clock out. It was very basic, not too complicated, and that was the purpose for clocking in and clocking out. Um, I remember at a certain point, I got a little bit frustrated with this kiosk because I said, I'm coming to work at 8:45 and I'm clocking in, and I'm clocking in sometimes at 9:01, 9:02, which is annoying because then based on when you clock in, like your manager will get notified if you're late. So I said it's not fair that I get in line and we have 2 kiosks and we have like dozens of employees. And if one of these things breaks, then guess what? Everyone shifts the line over. Now the line is even longer, and I could be waiting for half an hour because it's not a smooth transaction. It's a very old interface. It's a very old way of doing things. And it was just an old company. So I was just like, how can we improve this? How can we improve this? Um, and I came up with the idea that maybe we should create an application that people can put on their phones, and then we can have some sort of location component to it, right? We'll have an Android application written in Java or something, and we'll have the iOS application we'll have it in Objective-C or Swift, um, But I said let's come up with two mobile applications, and then we'll have some sort of location functionality on it, so that people can only clock in obviously if they're at work, and likewise they can only clock out if they're at work, right? So nobody should be home trying to clock in, and likewise nobody should leave work, go all the way home, and then try to clock out and get some extra time. Not that there was any abuse or time fraud or anything like that, but obviously you have to look at what management is going to think and what are their concerns going to be. So I just had this idea, and it's something I was just scribbling in my notebook, just trying to think about, like, how do I suggest this? How much would it cost? What resources would we need? How much time would be saved? How do I calculate the value of the time and translate that into productivity? For example, if you have 50 employees and they're all spending 10 minutes every day just waiting in line, that's 500 minutes, right? That's almost 10 hours, right? That's about 8 hours and 20 minutes of time every day that's a whole workday. That's someone's entire workday being just spent, clocking in and clocking out. So I just had this idea. I talked to a few other developers, and they were just like, no, they're like, nobody's interested in building this. Like, you should go to management, make a case, and have them essentially give you the resources. But they said, like, because no one's asked for this, we're just not interested in even entertaining it or talking you through it, helping you kind of flesh out what it would look like. But I saw that there was a need, and I said, I'm going to pursue this idea. So I tried reaching out to my manager. My manager was not interested, but luckily there was another manager who was interested. So I had just a casual lunch with him. I explained my idea. I said, I think we could improve. First of all, I think morale would go up. People don't like the kiosks. They hate them. They start cursing when one of them breaks down. So I said, if we could maybe have this application, it's on everyone's phones, that'd be great. And then he helped me kind of look at, well, how would we train people on how to use it? What would the application look like? How do we get legal to approve it? How do we make sure it's secure and we're not taking anyone's information? And he helped me think a little bit more big picture. He's like, you're looking at it like a convenience for the employees. We also have to look at it that once we make this something like this, it's an obligation on the company, right? Now we have to support it. Now we have to make sure that it's secure and it's updated in compliance with the requirements that Apple and Google have. You can't have like an insecure, vulnerable application on their market. They don't like that. So we brainstormed and we had a few conversations and we put together some sort of pitch. So I was able to talk to people who were above him at like the director level, the departmental level, and we put together a very quick presentation. The ROI was very clearly there. I mean, there's morale would go up, people would be happier, people would be more productive, they would have more time to do work. So those, the ROI was very easy. They looked at how much time would be saved, how much additional work would be generated, revenue, all that stuff. And then we also had to talk about costs, like how many developers would have to be assigned to something like this, how much, we have project management resources we have to think about. We have to think about timeline. We have to think about budgeting. We have to define scope a little bit. Who would be in charge of this? I mean, once this application is made, who is going to be in charge of hosting it? Who's going to be in charge of paying any fees related to, to managing and maintaining the application? I think HR wanted to, HRIS department wanted to manage the application. They had a vision where it wouldn't just be clocking in and clocking out. They were like, we want an application that maybe is a one-stop shop for employees. Like maybe they can check their PTO on this application. They can look at their health insurance, elections. They can look at the 401k. They made it a much bigger animal than I intended. It was meant to be very simple, but we had conversations, and in time, I left before I saw it come to completion. But for a time, I was considered the product owner for these applications, the Android and iOS version, and I did walk teams through early iterations of it, but it was very bare bones. It was nothing fancy, and I left before it became a lot more complicated. I'm told that it was, it definitely grew and got a lot of traction over the years, especially as the company grew larger and larger and acquired other companies. They started implementing this with their other subsidiaries or other locations throughout the New England area. So I shared the story with her, and I told her that sometimes, if you want to be a product manager or product owner, you can't wait for a company to give you a product, because I said you have to understand it's a risk for the companies if you don't have a traction, right? If you did undergrad, you're going to business school, which is not easy, and it's not, it is a noteworthy investment. I'm not going to say that it's nothing, but as far as the company is concerned, you don't have a track record, you don't have deliverables, you don't have something you can speak about intelligently. Like, they want to see past behavior, past deliverables in order to predict like how productive, how reliable you can be in the future. So I shared the story and I told her that don't wait for them to give you a product. I said sometimes you can find an opportunity in a company to create a new product. And I said if it's your idea and you know what the vision looks like, how you want it to behave, you know what the need is, like what problem it is solving, I said you might end up being the product manager for that product. So I said, don't copy this literal example, because I said this is also a very old example. I think, you're not going to be able to convince them to have a timekeeping application or anything like that. But I said, just look at it. See if there's anything about your intranet or everyone's workflow that they're a little bit maybe frustrated or disappointed in. I said, if there's any space that can be improved, right, look at it, see if there's an opportunity for a product, whether internally or even customer facing. See what customers are saying. If there's anything, if there's anything that's lacking in the consumer experience, maybe there's an opportunity for you to exploit that. So that was just my, just a little anecdote on how, if you want an opportunity, you sometimes have to create it rather than wait for it to be given to you, especially if you're not in a place where that would make sense just as a business decision. So it's easier to prove yourself when you identify a problem that they didn't know was there, and then you devise a solution rather than wait for them to essentially, hand you some responsibilities. You can be proactive at times when it makes sense, and try to, generate your own, career progression, so to speak. Hopefully that anecdote was of some value to someone somewhere.